I really took the mentality of me, myself, and I don't need anybody. I was just a wrecking ball for like 3 years of just pure survival.
There's always a turning point, the moment that tries to break you, but ends up launching your destiny. This is Miracle Moment. I'm Ray Ireland, and I'm here to help you rise into the mission God created you for. Let's jump in. Today we have Queen of Legal Advertisements on, Amy Barrie, and she's going to be sharing some of her story of how she got to where she is. I mean, she's a part of this $150 million company. She's been a part of it since the very beginning, growing it, shaping it, and it's really shaping a lot of what's happening in the country with legal battles and ways that we can stand up for families. But the reason why I wanted to bring her on is her personal story. She has just an amazing story of heart redemption and the power of grace through her journey to Rwanda and her journey with her parents and the ways that they didn't talk for a while and then they came back together. So let's just dive in. If you're someone who is wanting to find that ultra successful part of you and turn that version of you online, you're going to want to listen to this, because this is the stuff that you don't want to forget while you're going after your business or the money or the things. You want to make sure that you're actually connected and in alignment with God and your roots. So let's jump into this episode. Hey everyone, I have a dear friend, Amy Barrie here, and she's a new friend, but she is so amazing. She is in the legal advertising space, which is a world, I'll be honest, I don't really know too much about, but we're going to learn about it. But more importantly, what I want to highlight is just the way that Amy shows up to life. And she shares so real and raw via her social media, via the other things that she's doing. We're both down here living in Cabo, and so it felt like we absolutely have to do a podcast episode together. So let's dive in. Amy, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing in the legal advertising co-counseling world.
Yeah.
And put it in simple terms for all of us.
I mean, yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't even know what I did until I was a year into it. I worked for a firm, the Goldwater Law Firm and Broughton Partners, and we are a nationwide advertising firm that really helps personal injury firms and mass tort firms fight against corporate negligence. And so we just bring awareness to the public on what is possibly harming them and their families. And so I've had the privilege to be a part of some really incredible litigations like Roundup that has glyphosate in it, or the Camp Lejeune litigation that poisoned our Marines back in the 50s, and why a lot of our Marines families were born with cancer, have lost loved ones, and the talcum powder litigation, and just things like that. And so over my career, over the last 8 years, I've just had the honor with working with some of the top trial firms in the country to walk alongside them on how to scale their dockets, bring more people into the play, and just bring awareness to the people of America on what kind of products that they need to be aware of and how they can protect their families. And also just making change for the next generation of holding these corporations accountable. I love capitalism, but there's obviously an ethical and a right way to do it. So been in that for, like I said, 8 years, and I'm just honored to be a part of that industry and honored to be a part of the changers and the shakers and the changers of making a brighter tomorrow. So
cool. Well, and I just love being able to share your heart first and foremost, because that's something that stood out when we connected. I was like, oh my gosh, this woman gives and cares. And I love that even in the legal space, that's what you're standing for and doing. But I got to highlight the thing that you were like, I literally didn't know what I was even doing a year into it. So obviously there's an epic story. How did you even find yourself in this space?
It is a very epic story. And something about me is I literally jump off the cliff and I'm like, we'll find wings. And if we don't, it'll be a soft landing and we'll see
My
where
kind
we
of
end.
girl.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's gotten me in trouble before in the past, but it usually is shaked out to be pretty decent. Actually, it goes back to 2017. I moved to Rwanda for a missions trip. I was there for some time, and we can crack into that later. But going into that missions trip, completely broken, addicted, full of just shame and guilt, carrying a lot of dark, dark stuff. Had next to zero relationship with my family. Came back from that trip, God completely changed me, broke my heart, mended it back together, complete restoration of my family. And I was in my last year of university and I was working at a gym and was always part of these like little businesses in university and in school and different startups and all that kind of stuff. I love the startup world. And I saw this ad on Instagram and it's like, learn how to make $10,000 a month. I'm like, sick. I'm living in my mom's basement and here we go. And so I signed up for this course and I started to learn about drop shipping and the e-commerce world and I picked it up really, really quickly. And then that evolved into an internship with this like boutique little marketing company. And she gave me a project that was in lead generation. She just got back from a conference in Vegas. It's called Mass Torts Made Perfect. So she came back and she's like, Amy, there's a firm down in the States. I need you to make a spreadsheet of a database of every single law firm in the United States and Canada. And so I spent like 4 months making this massive spreadsheet of managing partners' names, practice areas, emails, phone numbers, you name it. Like I still
Pre
have it
AI.
pre AI. Yeah, yeah. This was like back in 2017 and I still have it like on my phone and Google Docs and stuff. But anyways, so she's like, Kate, we need to go fly down to Florida because there's like a group of people that are interested in buying this list. But there was one problem. I had to pay for my ticket to fly down there. And so you can go on my Facebook, you can scroll all the way back, but I sold everything in my closet on Facebook Marketplace, like everything from shoes to a charger for like Nintendo DS. Anyways, like I scrapped up enough money for the flight down to Florida. I had a little carry-on bag and I thought I was going to be gone from the Friday to Tuesday kind of thing. And I ended up staying 6 months there. And there was this guy, Steve Smith, who later on became my partner. He picked us up from the airport, and our meeting with like the group of these people was on, let's just say, the Saturday, and we flew down on like a Thursday or something. And so the day before that, I was listening to this guy, Steve, on all of these like sales calls that he had. And he was talking about like $500,000 deals, $250,000 deals, and talking about a specific litigation called Invocana that actually was a drug for diabetes people that made them lose like toes and like their limbs and that kind of thing. And it was like, is this guy like in the mafia? Like, did I
Yeah.
make the biggest mistake of my life? Am I gonna be okay? And over that day and a half, I got to really kind of get a very small peek into this guy's world and this industry called mass torts. And I was completely fascinated. My dad passed away from cancer when I was 16 and never drank, never smoked, but he was a heavy user of Zantac. And that litigation kind of came down the pipe later when I was developing my career.
Whoa.
Um, so little miracle moments like that, how God
Yeah.
moves and shifts. But anyways, so we sit down at this dinner on the Saturday, let's just say, and a group of these guys offered us X amount of money for this like little lead list that I had. And I was like, if you guys are offering me that and I'm like some 22 or 21-year-old Canadian chick and knowing nothing and I've been hearing this dude on like these sales calls talking about these numbers, like I'm missing a pretty big piece of all of this. Steve and I got to know each other over the time that we were there. And I asked him, I was like, I would love to work for you. Like, can you give me a shot in this? And he saw how hard I worked and my work ethic, and had I just like sold everything to make this trip work. And he really put his neck out on the line for me. And he was like, yeah, like, I'll teach you. I can't pay you. I'll pay you a commission when you sell something. I'm like, done. That's all I need. So I got myself an air mattress. I got myself 3 plastic plates. We found like a little place in Fort Lauderdale in Oakland, and kind of like and just made it work. I bummed my neighbor's Wi-Fi while I was there to like start researching firms on Google. I just started cold calling firms and be like, hey, like, are you advertising for Roundup? Or like, hey, do you want cases? Like, I had no idea what I sold. No idea. My job was to literally like get firms on the phone and like, they're like, one moment, please. Like, Steve, come in here. And he would like answer the phone. This is the president of Amicus speaking. And we started the firm with like maybe 5 people in our intake, and that has grown and evolved to we're over $100 million company. We have close to, depending on volume, 200 people in our call center. And we've just been able to grow and evolve this firm and this business over these 8 years to just something really incredible, and have made
Wow.
such insane change in the industry and how lawyers operate, how the industry operates, from ethics, compliance, and really just being a gold standard company, which I'm extremely proud to be a part of. And so that's kind
So
of
cool.
my story, and that's how I got
Yeah.
into it. And
It's so wild. I feel like there's just so many moments of obedience where you're like, okay, yes, God, like, all right, I'm doing this. I'm just really trusting. And it's amazing because sometimes when we're younger and we don't have as much on the line, I feel like it's easier to also
oh,
just go for it. And so as I was hearing this story, like I was kind of relating to some of the crazy things that we just like totally tried and like lived on the street playing music on street corners. Like, oh yeah, we can do this. We're going to grow into a national band, and like we ended up doing it, but like how did I believe that I could then, versus now? And so sometimes it's just great to revisit those stories because we can learn so much, about like, oh, remember who I was. Remember that girl that, did that and just went on a limb and sold everything and just put my
yeah.
all into something. I think there's so many cool themes there. I'm
Yeah.
curious about, I want to kind of dive into one piece, which is you said at the very beginning, you had this moment where you weren't really connected or talking with your family. And then, fast forward, now it's been 8 years and you've grown all this success. Where, at what point, if we can kind of get a little personal here, but I feel like that's a real thing that a lot of people deal with is they shift their identity and sometimes leave their family behind, or things happen, or there's old traumas that get resurfaced, things kind of happen there. And it's like, well, I'm living this life and I see the success and I'm going for it and I'm putting my all and like doing these amazing things. So what was that point where there was like a full circle moment where you realized like I actually need to return back to my roots and family? And like, can you just share a little bit about like that journey for you, and maybe some of the fruits that you've seen since that? If you're loving this conversation and it's sparking something inside of you, maybe it's time to share your own voice with the world. That's exactly why we created the Podcast Accelerator, to help leaders like you go from hidden to heard with a podcast that connects, inspires, and actually grows your business. We launched together in just a few months, and you'll have the system, support, and strategy to keep scaling and growing. Doors are open now, so the link to apply is in the show notes. We cannot wait to see you in there.
When I lost my dad was very much like the glue in our family. My brother's the glue in our family too. But my dad was really like the foundation and the stability. And growing up, my mom and I were very much like sisters, where we were like cat and dog fight. I had an amazing childhood growing up. Like, my parents gave me the biggest blessing to, have my mom be a stay-at-home mom and take care of me and pick me up from school and, all of that. But after my dad passed away, we just lost everything that was like normal to us. And he passed away very quickly. He got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer and was gone in about 6 months. And so, like, that transition time was crazy. You
Yeah.
take my mom, who has been a stay-at-home mom for like the last 17 years, sold her business when she had me to just like, give and sacrifice everything that she had. Losing a parent when you're 16 and like hormonal and independent and, all of this kind of stuff, it just created literally catastrophe for my mom and I. I moved out when I was 17 to University, U of C, University of Calgary for all of you Americans.
Yeah. You see
Um,
Berkeley, you see.
no, you see, University of Calgary, yeah. And I really took the mentality of it was like, you know, me, myself, and I'm gonna win. I don't need anybody. Like, that's kind of when social media was like really popping off too. And I, was getting really into fitness my first day of university. Like, I signed up for a bikini modeling comp. I did the Spartan race trifecta. Like, I threw myself all into fitness because, and I did that like during when my dad got sick because after school, I wouldn't go home right away. I would go to the gym. And that's kind of was my saving grace. And I, and in my first year of school, that was like my whole identity was fitness, showing everybody that I was okay, showing everybody how strong I was, that, blah, 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 blah. Growing up in a Christian bubble, getting removed from that with all of this like trauma attached to you and you don't know how to process it, it just kind of made like a recipe for disaster. And in my second year of school, you layer on like, a caffeine addiction, then smoking weed, then getting into like the rave scene and stacking up, oh, I'll do like a little Molly
It's like
here,
one
like
thing at a time, and then all
one
of a
thing
sudden you're living a whole different life.
one thing at a time, being in full course load at school, running a business on the side for competing, being a personal trainer, like basically full time. So like my day would look like, you get up at 5:30, my cardio started at 6, I would have a client at 7, my classes started at 8:30, 8:30 to 4, and then my clients would start at 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. and then I would like crash out. And that was like a continued cycle. So like I was just a wrecking ball for like 3 years of just pure survival. And, my mom was really going through it and I just couldn't have a relationship with her at that time. And I ended up like hitting rock bottom. I will spare you the details because we only have a limited amount of time, but I ended up hitting rock bottom. And I moved out of my house right away that I was staying in with like my roommates that I lived for a couple of years, and I just like moved out overnight. It got really toxic, and like a week later, I found myself on this missions trip with Athletes in Action, going to Rwanda. And they're like, Amy,
Diving all
because
in, right?
yeah, yeah, but like, I smoked weed before my flight to Amsterdam that morning. I got drunk on the plane. Like, I left my passport on the flight when we landed in Amsterdam to Kigali. And, like, I was about to miss my flight to Kigali. And I was talking to my team lead. And I was like, oh, if God wants me on this plane, like he'll make it happen. This is a miracle moment right here because I told my
Yeah.
team lead, I was like, I don't know where my passport is. And she's like, what? And I was like, yeah, like it'll work. It'll happen. If God wants me to go on this trip, he'll make it happen. And then I kid you not, on the aircom, it's like, Amy Barrie or Amy Scragg, can you please come to the front? We have your passport. And I'm like, hey,
You were
Kelly.
not
Like,
getting out of that one.
I was like, my passport. And she's just like, holy crap. And, landed in Kigali. And the first day that we got to Rwanda, we went to the Memorial Museum and we just got like full on like hose, fully exposed water, full force of the genocide that happened there, the destruction that happened there. And we went to a Catholic compound on our first day after I'm just
Wow.
like, coming out. And, we go to a Catholic compound where there is still bones inside the church, like with clothes on the bones. This is like 20 years later. There's like still bullets in the walls. There's
Oh
still
my
blood marks
goodness.
on the floors. There's teeth outside of this church. Like I'm getting the full, real,
Yeah.
raw exposure
And
on
this is
this.
prior to all of the legal work, right?
This
This
is
is,
prior. Yeah, this is
mm-hmm.
prior. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but this ties in like with my whole family and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so like
Yeah.
during that trip, it was a constant pattern of like God taking my heart, completely breaking it, remending it, showing me that like I am chosen, I am loved by Him, I have a purpose in Him. He has given me a new life, and there's restoration, and just like seeing a people that have had everything taken from them,
Oh my
limbs
goodness.
chopped off, families absolutely scattered. We found a body, like a pile of bones in a soccer field that we were chopping down. Like there was over 1 million people in less than 100 days
Crazy.
being terrible. And you know, the joy and the peace and the love and the connectiveness that the people of Rwanda have is like you go to Rwanda and you see God. That's it. Like
Wow.
it's one of the most moving experiences that you can have. Like I could my biggest thing to anybody is get into mission work. Like if you haven't been into mission work, if you're not in the service work, you are not experiencing God because he just has so much in store for us when we step into that position to of service from or through him, and it just heals so many parts of ourselves. And I always take away that the people of Rwanda did more for me than I could ever do for them. And I came back from that trip just completely changed. Like I had a new heart transformation there. And my mom picked me up from the airport. My family picked me up from the airport. And it was just like such a beautiful moment because, God really slapped me when I was down there. And some of the guys that were a part of our group, they were asking me about my family because that's one thing in Africa. They're like, so how's your mom? Like, how's your dad? That's why business and that's why time in Africa is like just not a thing. There's zero urgency there. And I was like, yeah, I don't really know. My mom deeply hurt me and I haven't talked to her really for, the last few years. And they're like, you haven't talked to your mother? Like, I and they were just appalled by that.
Wow.
And they were like, you have no idea what I would do to like talk to my mom again or like have my mom again in my family. And like, you should be
Wow.
so lucky. Like, almost like you should be ashamed of yourself for not like,
Well, and there's probably that space of not it's not coming from like a close friend or a family member, but it's someone so outside giving you just this new
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. And
Wow.
so, that was a big hit for me. Coming back to reality and coming back home, I moved back in with my mom. I was living on my own for the last 5 years, and I was like, Mom, I really want to spend more time with you and live with you and just like get to know you because this was one of the biggest takeaways that I had, especially with our parents or like people that are very close to us, like any kind of family member. we they are who they are because of their experiences and their upbringings that they had. And parenting or life doesn't come with a rule book except the Bible. But, it's, but, we have to have grace for our parents on, you know, the choices that they've made and the mistakes that they've made. And, they are who they are for a reason. And you can't change people, you can only love people. And, there's some things about my mother that drive me up the wall, like we
Yeah.
all have, like just a short circuit moment. You're like,
Uh-huh.
I love her through that because I know how much she's gone through and why she is the way that she is. And instead of trying to change her, or instead of trying to, like condemn her or punish her, I can just love her through that because even though I wouldn't choose personally to do it that way, it's just who she is. And, that was the one of the biggest takeaways that I had from that whole experience is just loving her through her trauma and her differences and just knowing at who she is because obviously there's a reason for that, but it's not my job to change
Totally.
her. It's just my job to
I,
love her. So
Absolutely. And like that's what Jesus does and brings to us is just this huge amount of grace. And so we get to learn how to hold that for each other. And I think there's just such a code and a key when you can hold that level of grace and understanding and forgiveness to someone that is close, like a family member. And, when it stings and it hurts and all that stuff, it gives you a lot of freedom too. If
yeah.
you can
Oh,
accept
yeah.
that, then all of a sudden it's like just this huge weight comes off your shoulders. So, anyways, Amy, I'm just so grateful for you for sharing so transparently your story because I think there are a lot of women that, are chasing the success. And I mean, we are women, we like success and we love going after it. And we're like, give me the goals and give me the thing that's gonna
Yes.
like feel impossible. I want to go after it, right? So, and that's really the audience that's listening. But I feel like there's just such a softening that can happen just by listening to your story because of the way that you have been so open to allowing God to like mend your heart. And the coolest thing is like, we heard, what you're up to now and like this crazy epic business and you're doing so much good in the world and, and you're like, it's full boss babe. You're in the legal space. Like this is intense stuff, right? But like to be able to hear the roots of what you've gone through and who you've become, I don't doubt that through you doing that and through you reconnecting with your mom, like these new types of opportunities were able to come to you because you were more of a clear, open slate of like, okay, I've kind of completed those pieces. I'm walking with God. Okay, God, like show me what to do. I might be broke financially, but like I got a lot to give here. And so
Yeah.
I just think your story is so cool. So thank you so much for sharing it. I appreciate the time that you've spent with us and everything that you've just shared with us.
Well, you're welcome. If my story or my experiences can help anybody, that's the goal, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thanks everyone for listening. You're going to definitely want to go follow Amy. We didn't even get into any of the sales girl stuff that she shares. I mean, we're going to have to do a part two, but this was actually the most important piece. And, just know there are many successful people out in the world, but it's really important to see where someone's heart is and to hear from their stories of, redemption and grace and forgiveness. That's how you really get to know who someone is. And so let that be a little micro lesson here around just really finding your people and seeking them out through the stories that they share. But with all that said, go follow Amy. She has some like sales girl tips up the wazoo. She is amazing, just total brilliant business babe. And I think we'll have to bring her back. So, Amy, thanks so much for being on the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to part two.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Miracle Moment. Share the episode, hit follow, and join us every Thursday for prayer and activation. For more tools to rise into your God-given mission, visit rayireland.com. See you next week.